Throughout history, women have shaped nations with their courage, faith, and resilience. Some of the most extraordinary examples are found right in the Bible. These women weren't perfect, but their trust in God made them powerful. In this video, we'll uncover the lives of 6 powerful women in the Bible, each with lessons that still inspire us today. Deborah is one of the most remarkable women in the Bible. At a time when Israel had no kings, she stood out as both a judge and prophetess, guiding the nation with wisdom and divine authority. She led under the palm of Deborah, where people sought her counsel and justice. When God commanded her to call Barak to lead Israel's army, Barak refused to go without her. That shows the deep respect and trust people had in her leadership. Deborah didn't hesitate. She stepped forward with courage, declaring, "Go, this is the day the Lord has given Sisera into your hands." With her faith, Israel defeated their enemies in a miraculous victory. Her story doesn't end there. In Judges 5, Deborah and Barak sang the Song of Deborah, one of the earliest Hebrew hymns, celebrating God's deliverance and honoring the brave. Lessons from Deborah's life. 1. God can use anyone. Leadership is not about gender, but about obedience and faith. 2. Courage is contagious. Deborah's boldness inspired others, even warriors like Barak, to step into battle. 3. Lead with wisdom and faith. True leadership comes from listening to God and guiding with His authority. 4. Celebrate victories. Deborah's song reminds us to give God the glory when He delivers us. Esther's story is one of the most powerful examples of faith and bravery in the entire Bible. She began life as an orphan, raised by her cousin Mordecai, yet God's plan for her was far greater than she could have imagined. Through divine favor, Esther became queen of Persia, a position of influence in a foreign land. But her true test came when a wicked plot threatened the very survival of the Jewish people. Haman, a high official, convinced the king to decree their destruction. When Mordecai urged Esther to plead for her people, she knew the risk. Approaching the king uninvited could cost her life. Yet with unshakable faith, she declared, "If I perish, I perish." Esther 4:16. Esther courageously revealed Haman's plot to the king, and because of her boldness, the Jewish people were saved. Her story reminds us that God positions us with purpose, sometimes in unexpected places, to be part of His greater plan. Lessons from Esther's life. 1. God's timing is perfect. Esther reminds us that we are placed for such a time as this. Esther 4:14. 2. Courage brings breakthrough. Fear could have silenced her, but faith moved her to act, saving her entire nation. 3. Obedience requires sacrifice. Esther risked her own comfort and safety for the sake of others. And 4. Influence is a gift. Like Esther, we are called to use our influence, no matter how small or large, for God's purposes. Ruth's story begins in tragedy. She was a Moabite woman who married into an Israelite family, but soon lost her husband, her father-in-law, and her brother-in-law. With nothing left, Ruth faced a choice: return to her people in Moab or follow her mother-in-law Naomi back to Bethlehem. In a moment of extraordinary devotion, Ruth declared, "Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God." Her decision was more than loyalty to Naomi. It was a statement of faith in the God of Israel. Ruth worked humbly in the fields to provide for them, and her faithfulness caught the attention of Boaz, a man of honor and compassion. Through God's providence, Ruth married Boaz, and together they became the great-grandparents of King David. Ultimately, this meant Ruth, once a foreigner and outsider, was woven into the very lineage of Jesus Christ. Her story shows that God honors even the quiet, hidden choices of faith and devotion. Lessons from Ruth's life. 1. Faith in action matters. Ruth's decision to follow Naomi's God set her life on a new path. 2. Loyalty opens doors. Her devotion and care for Naomi positioned her for God's blessings. 3. God redeems brokenness. Ruth's loss turned into legacy through God's plan. 4. No one is too far from God's grace. A Moabite woman became a part of the Messiah's story. Hannah's life began in deep pain. Though she was loved by her husband Elkanah, she bore the heavy weight of barrenness. To make matters worse, she endured ridicule from Peninnah, her husband's other wife, who taunted her for her inability to conceive. Each year at the temple in Shiloh, Hannah carried her sorrow before God, weeping, fasting, and pleading for a child. One day, in her anguish, she prayed so fervently that the priest Eli thought she was drunk. But Hannah explained, "I was pouring out my soul to the Lord." In that moment, God saw her brokenness and remembered her cry. Soon after, Hannah conceived and gave birth to Samuel, a child she dedicated fully to the Lord. Samuel would grow to become one of Israel's greatest prophets, the one who anointed both Saul and David as kings. Hannah's story is a powerful reminder that God often uses our deepest pain to birth his greatest purposes. Lesson from Hannah. God hears the prayers we cry in secret. Even when misunderstood by others, our persistence in prayer can move heaven and birth miracles that change generations. Mary Magdalene, once broken, became one of the most devoted followers of Jesus. She was the first to see him resurrected, entrusted with proclaiming the greatest news ever told. Lesson: your past doesn't disqualify you. God redeems, restores, and gives you a new purpose. Mary's life began quietly in a small town called Nazareth. She was young, humble, and unknown, a simple girl with a heart devoted to God. She lived her days in ordinary tasks, yet her life was about to intersect with the extraordinary. One day, the angel Gabriel appeared to her with a message that would change history. She was chosen to bear the Son of God. Imagine Mary's thoughts in that moment: fear, confusion, awe. Yet even in uncertainty, her faith did not falter. With a heart fully surrendered to God, she responded, "Let it be unto me according to your word." Her obedience was not just an act of courage, it was a declaration of trust. In saying yes, Mary became the vessel through which salvation entered the world. Her humble surrender reminds us that God does not always call the powerful or the famous. He calls those willing to trust him, even when the task seems impossible. Mary's story teaches us that greatness often begins in quiet surrender. God can take an ordinary life and through faith and obedience accomplish extraordinary purposes. Every yes we give to God, no matter how small or uncertain, can ripple into eternity. Deborah's leadership, Esther's bravery, Ruth's loyalty, Hannah's prayers, Mary's surrender, and Mary Magdalene's devotion remind us that God uses women to shift history. Their stories show us that faith, courage, and obedience make us powerful vessels of God's purpose. Which of these women inspires you most today? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this video encouraged you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a reminder of God's power working through women.